Good evening, everybody. I am Diptangshu from Team Voyages into the Past, also known as Otit Probaho. Today, we are honored to have with us eminent historian Professor Osmund Bopearachchi. He will speak on Hindu gods in Gandharan art: Brahma, Indra, Shiva, Vishnu, and Surya. Generally, Professor Bopearachchi needs no introduction. He is the Emeritus Director of Research of the French National Center for Scientific Research, Paris, and former adjunct professor of Central and South Asian Art, Archaeology, and Numismatics, University of California, Berkeley, and former visiting professor and member of the Doctoral School of the Paris Sorbonne University. He is a numismatist, art historian, and archaeologist. He is an author of 16 books, 4 exhibition catalogs, 2 translations of books, editor of 6 volumes. He has read 92 papers at international colloquia, presented 275 conferences in 80 cities, and has carried out 120 archaeological missions in 24 different countries. Beside that, he also wrote numerous research articles and book reviews. His important books include Ancient Indian Coins, co-authored with W. Piper, and Ancient Civilization Revisited, Numismatic and Archaeological Evidence on Inland and Maritime Trade, co-authored with R. M. Vikraman Singh, The Pleasure Gardens of Sigiriya, A New Approach from Bactria to Tropopane, Central Asian and Indian Numismatics, Early Indian History, and Beyond Essays in the honor of V.D. Chattopadhyay, co-edited with Professor Suchandra Ghosh, Roots of Sri Lankan Art, published by Department of Archaeology, Colombo, From Hindu Kush to Salt Range, co-authored by Professor Sushmita Basu Majumdar, published by the Ink Beyond Imagination, Kolkata, and When West Meet East, Gandharan Art Revisited, published by Manohar, Delhi. These have been published last year. Without any further delay, I would like to invite Professor Bopearachchi. Thank you for joining us and accepting our request. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I hope you all can hear me, right? Hello?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So first of all, I would like to thank Diptangshu for the wonderful introduction, and also all these young kids, I may call undergraduate students from the President's University in Kolkata, and also especially Aditya Shankar Chattopadhyay for inviting me. And also I would like to thank especially Professor Suchandra Ghosh whispering my name to Aditya's ears. So I would like to present this humble presentation in memory of Professor Jaini, who passed away about a week ago, who was Indian-born scholar of Jainism, Hinduism, and Buddhism of the University of California. This is for his scholarship and also for his deep friendship with whom I learned a lot in my life. So the talk is based on the book, as Diptangshu said, the When West Met East, Gandhara Art Revisited. I know all of you know about Gandhara art. If I summarize it in few sentences, I would call it a form of figurative sculpture born in the Gandhara region between the 2nd and the 5th century CE. Gandhara art reflects regional cross-cultural elements arising from its direct relationship with Buddhism and to some extent with Hinduism, given that both flourished in India during the Kushan Empire. In relation to other forms of figurative art depicting the Buddha, particularly in Amaravati, Nagarjunakonda, and Mathura, Buddhist art in Gandhara is characterized by a naturalism reminiscent of Greek classical art. So you all know where Gandhara is situated. It's in the southern slopes of Hindu Kush Mountains and the Himalayan mountains, right in the middle of the Indus Valley, with the tributaries like Swat and Kabul valleys. So to give you a better image, if you look at Peshawar and also Taxila here, it is in this region. There are hundreds and hundreds of sites excavated during the British colonial period, later by Indian archaeologists, followed by Pakistani archaeologists and foreign delegations like the Italian mission. So when West met East, new forms of art were born. Buddhism provided new grounds for innovative artistic expression. The presence of Greeks in the area since the conquest of Alexander the Great is an important historical fact. However, Gandharan reliefs also owe a great deal to the Persian, Roman, Parthian, Scythian, and above all, Indian traditions. Through these interactions, a new composite art characterized by its singularity was born in Gandhara. I will just show you a few sites. You may have seen some of them or you may not have. I'm starting from Taxila in Dharmarajika, excavated by Sir John Marshall. This is the stupa, presumably built by Ashoka, but of course extended during the Scythian and the Kushan period. And then Taktibai, north of Peshawar, which is a wonderful site. We don't see any sculptures apart from one here. All the others were removed and they are in different museums in Pakistan, India, and all over the world. And also these are the excavations done by our Italian colleagues, starting from Tucci, Pacena, Calieri, and Luca Oliveri, and others in this area. And also, if you go to Greater Gandhara, like Hadda Tepeshator, excavated first by Afghan archaeologists and also the French archaeological delegation in Afghanistan. So just is a very short introduction to Gandharan art. So my talk is today on the Hindu gods in a Buddhist context. So I'll start with this problematic description from Lalita Vistara in chapter 8. This is what is said or what is written. Monks, at that time, the male and female elders of the Sakya clan gathered and said to King Suddhodana, King, please pay heed. The prince should now worship in the temple. So this happens when Siddhartha was born in Lumbini and he was taken back. I mean, of course, his mother passed away with Mahaprajapati. They all came back to Kapilavastu. So according to the tradition, the child should go to the temple. So this is the moment elders say, prepare the child to go to the temple. Then King Suddhodana went to his home and spoke to Mahaprajapati Gautami, saying, Prince is to pray in the temple. Ornament him well. While the prince was being dressed, with a slight smile and no hint of annoyance, he spoke these pleasant words to his maternal aunt, Mother, where are you taking me? She replied, Son, I am taking you to the temple. The prince then smiled, laughed, and spoke these verses to his maternal aunt. When I was born, Sakra, Brahma, the demigods, Margoshas, Surya, and Chandra, as well as Vaishravana and Kumara, all bowed their heads to me, to my feet, and paid homage to me. What other god is there who is superior to me? Who my mother takes me to worship today? I am superior to all the gods. I am the god of gods, Devatideva. There is no other god like me, so how could anyone be superior? It's very interesting. This section was added much later to Lalita Vistara, most probably in the 5th century, and in any presentation of Gandharan art or any other form of Indian art, you don't see this episode where the Siddhartha as a prince going to the temple. The only place where you get this depiction is in Borobudur. As we know, it is a Mahayana center of the 9th century. And in Borobudur, the artists or sculptors follow to the letter what is written in the Sanskrit version of the Lalita Vistara. So this episode is depicted. This is the only place where this episode is depicted. So if you read further, Lalita Vistara, it says, as soon as the Bodhisattva placed his right foot in the temple, the insentient statues of gods such as Shiva, Skanda, Narayana, Kubera, Chandra, Surya, Vaishravana, Sakra, Brahma, and the guardians of the world all stood up from their seat and prostrated at the Bodhisattva's feet. Right then, 100,000 gods and humans cried out in amazement and delight. The fine city of Kapilavastu trembled in 6 ways. A rain of divine flowers fell, and 100,000 divine instruments sound without even being played. So this is what you see here, Siddhartha coming into the middle. The statues came to life, and they are venerating the young prince. As I told you, this is a good way to begin how the Hindu gods were considered in Gandharan art. As you know, one of the things that I want to show, at the time when Buddha was born in the 6th century or the 5th century, depending on the sources, there were no statues of Hindu gods or any other at that period. So this was a pure invention of the later authors of Lalita Vistara to make Buddha superior to all the other gods, because this was a period that the Gupta Empire was rising and the Sungas were in power, and they rose to power, and then the Guptas followed. So this is to show in a way that Buddha was superior to them. Although this episode is not depicted in Gandharan art, what we see in Gandharan art is the Brahma, the creator, and Indra, the god of lightning and thunder, present in many crucial events in Buddha's life in Gandharan Buddhist art. Both gods were present at the nativity scenes, and it was Indra, in the presence of Brahma, who received the Bodhisattva Siddhartha, who emerged from the right side of his mother. Indra, lord of the gods, and Brahma, lord of the Sasa worlds, filled with profound reverence, worshipped the newly born child in a silken garment and respectively took him to their arms. So here you can see the Siddhartha is coming out of the plank of the mother, and then Indra receiving the child. So from this moment onwards, Indra and Brahma were always present by the side of the prince as a Buddha's Bodhisattva or as the Buddha. So Brahma and Indra reappear in many episodes related to the Blessed One. For example, Brahma and Indra bathe the newborn prince Siddhartha with scented water, or what we call hot and cold water bath. So on our left hand side you have Brahma like an ascetic. On the right hand side you have Indra with the Vajra in the hand. So they are always represented secondary to the Bodhisattva or to the Buddha. And also, for example, after his enlightenment, Buddha decided not to preach because he thought that ordinary human beings cannot understand his philosophy. So at that moment, Brahma and Indra came again. They are in Anjali Mudra, worshipping the Buddha and asking to reconsider his decision. So Buddha listened to them and started preaching. So this you will see, hundreds and hundreds of sculptures whenever Indra is presented or Buddha is presented with Brahma and Indra. They are shown in a subordinate, inferior position. For example, here, this is a depiction of Janapada Kalyani with Prince Nanda. You can see Buddha, very big, very tall, holding the hand of Nanda, and which I colored in rose color, is Indra. He is much shorter compared to Buddha, and welcoming Buddha and Nanda in his heaven, the heaven of pleasure. And also, if you look at this false gable came from Afghanistan. Once again, you can see Buddha right in the middle. As the white color arrows show, on the left-hand side, you have Brahma in Anjali Mudra, and on the right-hand side, you have Indra in Anjali Mudra. They all worship the Buddha. And also, on our right-hand side, there's a depiction of the visit of Indra to Indrasala cave, where you have Panchasika playing the veena, and on the right-hand side, Indra conversing with the Buddha in Anjali Mudra. And also another episode in Buddha's life is that he decided to go to heaven, of Triatimsa heaven or Tavachimsa heaven, that heaven of Indra, and decided to preach Abhidhamma to his mother, who has become a god now. So after 3 months and 7 days, he decided to come back to the earth And then the Indra and Brahma and others made three staircases or three ladders, and on our left hand side, Brahma in Anjali Mudra descending from the heaven, and in the right in the middle in Abhay Mudra, Buddha is descending, and on our right hand side in red color, Indra is worshipping the Buddha. So once again, you have the superiority of the of Buddha vis-a-vis Indra and Brahma. On the bottom, we have Utpalavarna, the nun who wanted to worship the Buddha. Again, another one of the same descent of the Buddha from the heaven of 32 gods of Indra. Right in the middle, you have Buddha in three different poses. And on our right hand side, as you can see, Indra holding the thunderbolt respects the Buddha who is coming down or descending from the middle ladder. On the left hand side, again, you have Brahma with the numbers, wearing ascetic garments and also respecting him. Again, another one which I discussed amply, where you have definitely Brahma holding a kundika, the water flask, and on the right hand side you have Indra with the vajra in the hand. Again, they are in an inferior position compared to the Buddha. So again, another one, we all have heard about Yamaka Mahapratiharya, or the twin miracle. The historical Buddha Shakyamuni gives a display of his powers by performing miracles before a gathering of heretical masters. And here, once again, you have Indra and Brahma on either side above the head of the Buddha, holding chatras or parasol. So it's not a secret in Gandharan art. These two gods, most powerful, the creator and the god of thunder and lightning, they are presented not as equals to Buddha, but as inferior to Buddha. This is what you see in most of the texts like Lalita Vistara, Mahavastu, Buddha Charita, Mulasravasti Vidya, and all the Sanskrit texts show these gods venerating the Buddha. On this connection, I am showing you the reliquary found in Peshawar Sajjaki Deri. Right in the middle, you have Buddha, and then on either side, Indra and Brahma. So these are the only gods really appear in a very clear context in Gandharan Buddhist art. But other gods appear. This is what we are going to see now. So I'm going to take the case of Narayana or Vishnu. As you all know, Narayana, one of the names of Vishnu, and sometimes Krishna, is mentioned as the Vedic supreme god according to the Bhagavad Purana. Quote, just as the river Ganga is the foremost and the holiest among rivers, O Lord Vishnu, among gods, or as God Shiva, among the devotees of Vishnu, Shiva is the greatest devotee of Vishnu. The same is the position of Srimad Bhagavata among Puranas. So this is the place the Vishnu held in Indian literature. As you all know, we can give plenty of examples. So I start my this talk about Narayana or Vishnu with this sculpture, and our key document is the sculpture from Gandhara depicting an anthropomorphic Vishnu Narayana and a zoomorphic Vishnu Varaha. Normally, in this story, I know most of you know, but for those who are not accustomed with the Hindu literature, so I just give you a Brahminic literature. I will read this. The boy incarnation of Vishnu as Varaha is connected to a creation myth. At the time when the whole earth was flooded, Varaha rescued the Bhudevi or Prithvi from the bottom of the ocean where she had been imprisoned by a sea demon. The god depicted behind the bow is undoubtedly Vishnu, as revealed by his attribute Chakra, Padma, Danda, and Sankha. In the iconography depicting this episode, Varaha is usually shown with a human body and the bowhead, and the majority of sculptures capture the moment when Varaha emerges from the ocean bearing Bhudevi, who hangs onto one of these tusks or sits on his right thigh. Of course, the most famous one, the best known one, one of the earliest and the largest panels depicting this scene is at Udayagiri in Vidisha, cave number 5 of the early 5th century CE. Here you can see very clearly anthropomorphic image of Varaha with a bowhead and Bhudevi hanging onto the tusks. And also this beautiful one from Badami of the Chalukya dynasty, where you can see Vishnu or Varaha holding the Bhudevi and Bhudevi very comfortably keeping the right hand on the tusks or on the head of the wild boar or Varaha. And again, of course, if you go to Tamil Nadu of Pallava dynasty of the 7th, 8th centuries, the relief from Adivaraha cave in Mahabalipuram, Tamil Nadu in South India, built around 700 CE by Rajasingha Pallava, portrays in a theoretical manner Vishnu Varaha having rescued the earth from the deep waters. Bhudevi, seated on the right thigh of his redeemer, looks at him with veneration. So this is what we normally find in later forms of art. But in this one, he is both anthropomorphic, meaning in human figure, and also zoomorphic, because he has also got the animal nature. So why do we say it is Vishnu? Because he has all the attributes. For example, the chakra, the wheel, and then the Padma, the lotus, and the Danda, a club, and also the Sankha, the conch. So these are the 4 main attributes of Vishnu, and we have no doubt that it is a depiction, one of the earliest depictions of Vishnu in India and also in Gandhara art. The person, unfortunately, the figure to our left-hand side is broken. It could be either Purusha holding Sankha or some other Ayudha or the arm, or the rescued Bhudevi. It's very difficult to say. The best example from Gandhara depicting Varaha came from Banu, from now in the National Museum of Pakistan in Karachi. The two-armed Varaha image from Banu, now in the National Museum of Pakistan, Karachi, is no doubt one of the earliest depictions of Vishnu Varaha rescuing the Bhudevi, where we first see the codified iconography. When I say codified, it's really following to the letter sacred text. So Vishnu incarnated as Varaha is shown with a human body and a bowhead, holding the club in the right hand and trampling the Naga with both legs in an exultant pose of triumph. Bhudevi is propped up against his left shoulder in similar fashion to the great relief of Udayagiri. So these are the earliest depictions of Varaha in Indian art, and they came from Gandhara. With this sculpture from Gandhara, we now have evidence to demonstrate that there was a tradition of the Varaha cult before the Parama Bhagavata rulers like Guptas came to the power. The sculptures attempt to create an image of Vishnu Varaha based on passages in the sacred text. This unorthodox iconography, as compared to other images which respect to the letter, descriptions formulated in the holy text, is more freely sculpted. The Gandharan sculptors seem to have enjoyed some independence in an increasing cosmopolitan atmosphere created by the politics of Kushans. The Bhagavata cult or Vishnuism in Gandhara region has a long history and appeared long before Shaivism. The discovery of 6 bilingual silver drums issued by the Indo-Greek king Agathocles, whom I date around 170 BC, depicting Balarama Samkarshana and Vasudeva Krishna hidden in a pilgrim's water vessel in a room of the administrative court of the ancient city of Vaikanum in northern Afghanistan by French archaeologists on 3rd of October 1970, revolutionized our knowledge of the Vaishnava imagery in North India. This series carried bilingual legends. On the obverse written in Greek, Basileus Agathokleios in genitive means of the king Agathocles, and on the reverse written in Gandhari, but using Brahmi Aksharas instead of Karoshi normally, Rajin Agathocles, both meaning of the king Agathocles. These coins, most probably struck in Taxila, enabled us to propose an absolute chronology for the iconography of these divine brothers. So here is the picture taken recently by a helicopter, the site excavated by the French archaeologist in Amudarya Kokcha rivers in northern Afghanistan by Paul Bernard with a red color t-shirt with the former Japanese emperor when he was the prince. And on the right hand side, you have the place where the pouch was found with these coins and some punchmark coins. So Jean Filiosa correctly identified the divinity holding a musala, the pestle, and the halar, the plough, as Samkarshana Balarama, and the one holding a chakra, the wheel, and Sankar, the conch shell, as Vasudeva Krishna. The attributes held by each god correspond to the Indian literary data of the time, such as Arthashastra, the Mahabharata, and the Mahabhashya of Patanjali. So we'll have a look at those attributes now. The god on the obverse holding a plough in his left hand is Balarama, or Rama the Mighty, elder brother of Krishna, son of Vasudeva, shown as plough carrier or as god plough weapon, Halayuda, which clearly evokes both his agrarian and warrior character. And then on the left-hand side, on our left-hand side, in his right hand, the musala, the pestle, held in the right hand, according to the epic and Puranic tradition, is synonymous with Samkarshana, the first of Vishnu's or Vasudeva's Vihu forms. So we are sure of it. And then this iconography continued also. As Balarama, they appeared on the Indo-Scythian coins, as you can see here, the coins of Maoris with the same attributes. And then we go to the reverse with the Brahmi legend. The god on the reverse holds a wheel with 8 spokes, a distinctive attribute of Krishna Vasudeva, who, like Samkarshana, is another form of Vishnu. And then conch shell or Sankar normally characterizes Vasudeva Krishna. The Remy Audouin and Paul Bernard correctly observed that the way these gods are depicted on the coins is not in accordance with the contemporary Greek engraving, as one can observe on the Attic standard tetradrachms of the same Agathocles, showing Zeus holding Hecate. The lack of proportions, awkward rendering of the feet, and the disproportion of the so-called headdress led them to conclude that these coin dies were engraved by an Indian engraver who was familiar with the convention of archaic Indian art. So this is what they meant. If you look at the same king with the Greek god Zeus, he is looking 3/4 to our left-hand side. So how to interpret what Audouin and Bernard describe as imposing helmet-shaped headdress? It is only a misinterpretation of a parasol or a chatra. It's not a headdress at all. So if you look at the Bodhisattva image now in the Lucknow Museum, which came from Mathura, you can see very clearly behind the head and over the head there is a chatra. So what my argument is, these coins were also engraved by a Greek engraver, but looking at a prototype which had the image of both gods, Balaram, Samkarshana, and Vasudeva Krishna, with the parasol over their head. So since they don't know the iconography, they converted the parasol into a headdress. And then, however, even though the attribute held in the hand was interpreted as a sankar or conch by Jean Filiosa, another characteristic attribute of Vasudeva Krishna in pear shape from form led Paul Bernard to describe it with precaution as a high-necked vase. It is not a high-necked vase. It is just a misunderstanding of the conch, which may have looked like a bottle to a Greek. Further notable characteristics of the depiction of these gods are their drapes, which stiff and starch folds, their outward turned feet shown in profile, and their static frontal pose instead of the usual three-quarter pose of Greek gods on the contemporary Greek coins. This is also a common characteristic in early forms of Indian art. I am just showing you two examples. One is from Bharu Stupa, other one is from the Sanchi Stupa. Look at the feet. They are not in three-quarter view. This is what you normally see. So there are many examples of the formative period of Indian art to show that in early sculptures of the Bharut and Sanchi stupas, the feet are in side view, similar to these coins. So my argument is that I believe that the dies were engraved by a well-experienced Greek engraver who was looking at existing statues of these two gods without grasping the symbolism of the Indian iconography of that period. In other words, the engraver, copying the Indian prototype, misunderstood the parasol, the chatra, and transformed into a headgear. In the same way, the Greek engraver may have misinterpreted the symbolism of the Sankha, the conch, and converted it into a high neck vase. It means images made of a perishable material or even of a non-perishable material lost forever or undiscovered until today may have existed before the date of this coin series. In other words, before the 2nd century BC. P.L. Gupta, when discussing the eventual identification of the female figure holding a flower and moving to the left, depicted on the bronze coins of Pantaleon and Agathocles, proposed to see Ekanamsha or Subhadra, Balarama, and Krishna's own sister. P.S. Jaini, whom we honor today, in his memory, pointed out Ekanamsha, the sister of Krishna, who was worshipped as personification of Durga, appears for the first time in Harivamsha in connection with the birth of Krishna. It is said in the Vaishnava Khanda of the Skanda Purana that Subhadra, or charming face, grants boons and immunity from fear, that means through the positions of her fingers, and holds a lotus in the hand. So if you look at the depictions which were misunderstood by Fouché and Sir John Marshall as Maya Devi being bathed before the Siddhartha was conceived, and these are all depictions of Gajalakshmi. The Lakshmi as goddess of beauty, wealth, fortune, and prosperity, and as the consort of the active energy of Vishnu, enjoyed an immense popularity in ancient art. She was given a prominent place in early Buddhist art, in particular in Bharut and Sanchi stupas. And also you can see some very rare coin series of Asilisses. On the reverse, we can see Lakshmi standing on a full-blown lotus, and you can see on either side two elephants performing Abhishek or the pouring water on her head. It is quite possible that at least 50 years before the emissions of the bilingual coins depicting Balarama Krishna and Lakshmi by Agathocles, there was a tradition of depicting gods related to Vaishnavism. The female figure in hieratic appearance compared to the ones on the bronze coins of Pantaleon and Agathocles holding a flower was correctly identified by Paul Bernard as a depiction of Lakshmi. So this series appeared at least 50 years before the coins minted by Agathocles. The bronze coin, and I attributed these coins to the time of Demetrius, when he, after the decline of Myron power, he crossed the Hindu Kush mountains from Bactria, came to India, and issued these coins of the Indian technique and respecting Indian gods on them. The various attempts were made by numismatists to identify the human figures holding various attributes appearing on imperial series of Panchmark coins dated to the 3rd century BCE. The recent article by Wilfred Pieper has proposed a comprehensive survey of these coins with the Vaishravana divinities. So what you see here is absolutely the earliest depictions of Vasudeva Krishna and Samkarshana Balarama. And these, of course, of the Ashokan period, many years before the coins issued by Agathocles. So there was a tradition of depicting these gods, at least Vishnu gods in India, before the Indo-Greek king copied their iconography. We now have solid evidence to show that the Bhagavata cult was popular in these regions as early as the 3rd century BC. I agree with Oduan and Bernard and accept the fact that Agathocles coins give us a perfectly clear and explicit illustration of the first forms of Vaishnavism in India, but these images were there at least 150 years before Agathocles. The irony is that the oldest of the inscriptions related to the Bhagavata cult with historical implications is a dedication by a Greek who proclaims himself a devotee of the Lord God or Bhagavata, in other words, Vishnu. This is a Besnagar column. It was erected in honor of Vasudeva, the god of gods, or Deva, by a Greek from Taxila, Heliodorus, son of Dion, ambassador of the Greek king or Maharaja Antiochus, to the local king Bhagabhadra, the savior. It was in this auspicious ambience that the Bhagavata worship developed in Taxila and in the surrounding Gandharan region during the 2 centuries before the Common Era. Now we will look at Shiva in Gandharan art. The popularity of Vishnu, the Bhagavata, underwent a significant decline in the Greater Gandhara region during the Kushan period when Bhima Kadphises, grandson of Kujula Kadphises, founder of the Kushan Empire, openly stated that he was a worshipper of Shiva by representing the image of the god on his coins and fully proclaiming his profession of faith in the legends in Gandhari and Kharoshti as Sarvalokishvara, Lord of the whole earth. So what you have here is Maharajasa, Rajadirajasa, Sarvaloga Ishvarasa, Mahaishvarasa, Vima Katafisasa, Tratara, or the Savior. So Shiva on the later series of King Bhima Kadphises is itphalic, how it should be. The god is three-headed. The frontal head is beardless. The one to the right, that of an old man, and the one to the left, that of an antelope. The divinity depicted on these coins is meant to be Shiva. He is three-headed. The head of the left appears to be that of Murga, the antelope, and the one on the right is human. The head of an antelope, we can identify Shiva as Pasapati, one of the 8 forms of Shiva named Bhava. When Shiva is looking at the right, our right hand side, the antelope image appears on our left hand side. When he looks on our left hand side, the head of the antelope appears on the right hand side. This cult was so popular, for example, this sculpture which I published elsewhere depicting Uma Maheshwara from Dargai in the Malakand region in Pakistan. What we see here? You see a codified image of Uma and Shiva. Why he is Shiva? Because he has got a Trishula, he has got Akshamala, and he has got the Kundika, the water pot. So Shiva stands here with Uma, his consort, holding the Akshamala, Kundika, and Trishula. In the broken back left hand, there would have been a Nilotpala, the blue lotus, or most probably Damru, the pellet drum, both attributes of Shiva. Their son, Skandakartika, wearing a cataphractus or a scale armor and holding the Shakti, the spear, and a cock is shown at their feet. And Kumara or Skanda Kumara or Kartikeya depicted or sculpted in Gandhara is completely different from the Kartika images that you find in Mathura or Middle Gangetic Valley or later in southern India. In all these depictions, he is shown, because he is the chief of the divine army, wearing a cataphractus, a heavy armor, which was used by the Greeks first and the Parthians and also by the Scythians. So this is one of the characteristics. There are many statues of Kartikeya in Gandhara. And also not only on Gandharan sculptures, of course he's holding the cock, and also sometimes with the peacock, and also with the shula, and also bow and arrow, sometimes with the heads. So on the coins you have, it's Mahasena, that means the Mahasena, the great army, as the chief of the army, and also Skandakumar and Bizago. So here you have Mahasena, this is coin of Vishka, with a short sword, holding cock, Hindu war god Kartikeya or Skanda. And also you have with the staff and nob final, Bizago with trident and sword. And sometimes you have three gods, they are named Skandakumaro, Maseno, and Bizago with trident and the sword. So Skandakumaro is Skandakumara, was treated as one god, while Bizago, Vishaka, and Maseno or Mahasena were worshipped as different deities and only later identified with the Skanda. I just wanted to show you this coin which just appeared in a sale catalog 2 weeks back. I saw this coin in Pakistan before it was clean on the top, and below you have a cleaned one. It's very clear. It's Vasudeva, one of the, the greatest Kushan kings, and he is wearing the cataphractus. And on the reverse you have, in the Iranian legend, Persian legend, Oesho, Shiva holding main attributes of Shiva, with his three-headed, with Trishula, Kuntika, and Parashu, and also Akshamala. So Shiva is shown with four heads. The central face is human. The left lateral head is of an old man. The turban and beard are evocative of an ascetic nature of Shiva. The right lateral head of an antelope, thus Shiva as Pasapati, and the fourth head with bulging eyes is evocative of his demoniac and angry manifestation. So when the Kushans were nearing their apogee, the cultural interactions with the Hellenistic, Iranian, and Indian worlds in these frontier regions gave birth to a progressive Indianization. I'm extremely sorry for using this word, but I mean to say they become Indian. The result of these interactions was the emergence of a composite iconography. The identification of a deity holding attributes described in sacred texts as belonging to several gods of the Hindu pantheon is often confusing. It also confused the art historians of the past. For example, here, if you look at it, the erect linga, as well as the Trishula, and the third eye are characteristics of Shiva. And then, if you look at the water pot and the Akshamala, they could be also attributes of Shiva and also attributes of Brahma. But above all, the chakra, the head of bow, and the with protruding tusks evoke Vishnu and his bow avatar. So here is a good example from the Salt Range in Pakistan. And on the right-hand side, we have the one in the Rome Museum from Pontecorvo collection. Again, another one, you can see this god is appearing in a typical Buddhist context, right? So this is from Budgara, excavated by the Italian archaeologists. So who is he? He is holding a Asi, a Vajra, Shakti, and a Chakra. Those who published it, like Nyoli, he said, this is Shiva. Agrawala said, no, this is Shiva, Vishnu, and Indra. And Mauricio Tadei said, no, this is Kandakumara, Kartikeya. Why is this confusion? Confusion is made with the attributes. If you take the Asi or the sword, it is Shiva. If you take the Vajra, it is Indra. And if you take the Shakti, it should be Skandakumara. If you take the Chakra, it is Vishnu. So it is almost like a composite image during this period, as if the codification was not yet done. So it's a combination of many gods or many attributes. I can't say it's syncretic because syncretism is of a syncretized version of existing gods, but this is a complete new version. So look at his headwear. It's almost like in Gandhara. You can see Indra holding the thunderbolt. He appears like Indra, but why should he have a chakra of Vishnu or a sea of Shiva? Again, another one which I used for the poster, which came from Rabatak in Afghanistan, and also it is quite confusing. So if I showed these two by hiding some attributes, for example, if you see the Vajra and if you don't see the other attributes, you would say this is Indra because his headdress also looks like Indra's headdress on the sculpture from the British Museum from Gandhara depicting the Sibijataka. And if I show you this, hiding the other symbols, you would tell me this is a chakra of Vishnu, as you see on this sculpture from South India now in the British Museum. And if I show you this, Sankar, the conch, and you may tell me, and this is Vishnu. The problem is, who is he then? So there is a period of attempting to codify the iconography in Gandharan art before it became polarized. This one, which I published recently when West met East, is a very interesting one. It's a fuse, it's a correct word, it's a fused depiction of Vishnu as Hari and Shiva as Hara, that hard limestone, which is of the 5th century. I mean, it's really the tail end of the Gandharan sculpture. So the three-headed god stands on a pedestal, facing wearing a diaphanous light clothes, revealing his erect penis. So he is Shiva. He holds in his back left hand Trishula, a trident, adorned with the parashu, and in the front left hand a sankar. So here we have, he has right rest upon the head of a Nandi. He performs Vardhamudra with the front right hand fingers, of which are partly broken. To his right, Nandi, Shiva's vehicle, stands with lowered head. And then we have next to his, to his left leg, a Chakra Purusha, like Ayudha Purusha. I mean, of course, Chakra is an Ayudha, it's an arm. Personified this symbol, wearing dhoti and with the chakra behind the head, looks at the god with admiration, with his right hand kept over the head, looking at the glory of the god. And the god wears armlets, a long necklace, and round earrings. His halo is decorated with the borders of beads and stylized flames. Apart from the Trishula, Nandi, and the erect phallus, this composite god appears as Shiva with his frontal head, carving with the third eye, and Jatamakuta, revealing his matted hair. And if you look more carefully, the Chakra Purusha, the two lateral heads are associated with Vishnu, two avatars, one to our right, and wild boar evoking Vishnu Varaha, and the other to our left, a lion in other words, Vishnu Narasimha. So it's a wonderful composition of both gods here. It doesn't appear as Harihara in later, especially in the sculptures in Maharashtra. But you have a very awkward combination of these attributes of both gods. And I take you to now Banu, where you have, again in Gandhara during the later period, now we have a codified iconography, and there is no hesitation. The sculptors who sculpted these two sculptures, one on our left-hand side is Shiva, one on our right-hand side is Brahma. They knew absolutely the sacred text and the codified attributes. So let's take Brahma, the creator. What do you say he is Brahma? Because he has got the Kundika, the water pot, and he has got Akshamala, and he has got something broken, which could be, I'm taking you to Iole, now in the Bombay Museum, former Prince of Wales, where it could be Shurva, the sacrificial ladle or the spoon, Brahma. Here is a depiction of Brahma. And he has a Kundika and also the personification of Kundika, the water pot, like an old man. And also he has got an Akshamala and also the personification of the Akshamala in human figure. So he is standing on a Padma, lotus, the flower par excellence of Brahma. And then he has three identical heads. If you have a god with three identical heads, if you can't see the fourth one behind, he is Brahma. So we have no doubt. And then we have look at the Shiva image. So he's Itipalik Chandrasekhar Murti, one of the earliest Chandrasekhar Murti of Indian art. So Itipalik Shiva, and Itipalik Shiva wearing a short dhoti, like an ascetic, is shown frontally with his right leg standing firmly on the ground and the left slightly bent. The toes of both legs of the gods are placed on the palms of a female devotee emerging from the pedestal. So here you have the Akshamala of Shiva, and then you have Matulunga, the citron, the symbol of creation, as its seeds are atoms that constitute the universe. I'm taking you to Elephanta, cave number 1, where you have Sadashiva or the Mahesha, the great Lord, holding this citron in his hand. He has a Trishula. Shiva holds a trident, the most important attribute as the destroyer in the left back hand. It is also noteworthy that the Trishula is adorned with a parashu. And then this is the parashu, the battle axe, fixed to the Trishula, is also evocative of the same ayuda or the arm that the rishis discharge against Shiva. And then he has got a kundika, the water pot, and then the face on the proper right with bulging eyes represents the terrible and angry manifestation of Shiva. So I'm taking you to Kashmir's mask in northern part of Peshawar, where this mask was found, where you can see that this is the demoniac aspect of Shiva with bulging eyes and also with the tusks emerging from the mouth. And on the contrary, on our right hand side, the juvenile face on the left or on our right in his left may be of Vamadeva or Uma, Shiva's Shakti. The third eye on the frontal face and on the lateral right face of Shiva symbolizes the fire with which the god periodically destroys the universe. And then, of course, Nandi, his vehicle. And then you have a crescent moon. The sculpture could be considered as one of the earliest depictions of Chandrasekhar Murti, since Chandra, the moon, is tucked up in Shiva's crown. The crescent moon symbolizes his divine power. Then the tiger claw attached to the necklace reminds us of the episode described in the sacred text when rishis, wild with rage against Shiva, the seducer of their wives, discharged snakes and Apasmara Purusha, a parashu, a bull, a lion, and a tiger. The lion and the tiger were killed by Shiva, and their skins were worn by him as garments. The tiger claw that Shiva wears on his chest may be the token of his triumph over the wild beast. I'm showing you one from the Gupta period, where you can see, which is in the Sarnath Museum, you can also see the tiger claw. The small man on our right hand side, the small gunner-like dove standing in adoration at the feet of Shiva, could be identified as Apasmara Purusha, venerating Shiva after the defeat of the former. Perhaps it would be more appropriate to consider the dove figure as a simple worshipper. I mean, it's normally Apasmara Purusha, like South Indian Chola images of Shiva Nataraja. You can see Shiva is dancing on on Apasmara Purusha. The Shiva image, there's a long story which I'm not going to discuss. For example, I'm showing you this now in the British Museum, which was in the Stein collection, where you can see with the Shiva with the three heads seated on double bull. So it shows from Gandhara how it went north, west, and then eastward in the Silk Road. Just to give you an example, which is not my intention today to talk of, that how it was popular. This is in Mogao Cave in Dung Hong, cave number 285. You have Shiva on the top, and below you have Kartikeya and Ganesh, his two sons. Shiva is four-handed, and the winged god is on the head. And then we have Vaikuntha Chaturamurti Vishnu, which was found also in Pakistan today, in Greater Gandhara. Though badly damaged, the sculptor has preserved all the four faces of Vishnu Vaikuntha. As one might expect, the frontal face is human. The one to our left is Narasimha. The one to our right is of Varaha, and the one at the back is of Kapila. Unfortunately, all the other attributes of Vaikuntha Chaturamurti were not found, but we are absolutely certain that this is Vaikuntha Vishnu. I think, Aditya, if you give me another 10 minutes, I would like to talk about this coin, which was, this was interpreted in different ways by different people, numismatics. One is in the British Museum, other one was found in Kashmir's Mas. The bronze coin of Rishiker depicting Brahma in the British Museum. This was identified as Rama by many, recently by Joe Cribb and also by Devendra Handa. Of course, we can't prove it is Rama without any further evidence. What you see here, of course, Devendra Handa had more convincing arguments, but you have here is a man with a bow as tall as him. And holding a big arrow. So the bow of God holds correspond to the description given by Nearchus, the Cretan chronicler, who accompanied Alexander into India, who noted that the bowmen had to rest the bows as tall as them on the ground and steady it with the left foot. They shot arrows almost 3 cubits long, to which no shield or armor resisted. So what happened was, during this battle with Alexander, the Indian army could not use these bows because it rained heavily the day and night, and they couldn't plant the bow between their toes and then attack the Greek army. This was one of the secrets of the victory of Alexander against the porous army. The earliest depiction known in Indian art of such a bowman is from Baja caves in Maharashtra, close to Pune, where you have an Indian soldier with an arrow and holding the bow. I colored them for you to see. Where these are one of the earliest depictions, apart from the coins of Alexander, earliest depiction of these bowmen. So the bronze coin of Rishiker depicting Vishnu with 8 arms. So this one, it went into a Peshawar private collection one. One is in bronze coin of Rishiker Kashmir's Mas, other one is in the British Museum. I'm not going to give you the history how people misinterpreted this god. And Harry Falk explains the legend has been composed of the Sanskrit Yodha, the warrior or Yodha, and Vamante, the praise in praise of the warriors, possibly related to Rishiker's extensive military expeditions. The poor condition of the 2 coins led 2 authors, Nasim Khan and Joe Cribb, to be cautious in identifying the attributes, though all of them agree to consider him as Vishnu, thanks to the conch held in front of the chest. So there's no doubt about it. This is Vishnu appearing again after a long time on the coinage. This sculpture, which I published recently, the god has 8 arms. Secondly, he holds Samka, or the conch, in the highest pair of hands. And thirdly, he is seated behind a tree. The Sanka, the conch of terrific sound, having the luster of moon and chakra, the discus with the luster of the sun, 2 Vishnu's attributes are clearly visible. So this sculpture, what is the relationship between this sculpture and the coinage? I'm absolutely certain the coin engraver was looking at one of these sculptures, if not this sculpture, at least something else. So he holds a Sanka in the highest pair of hands, and thirdly, he is seated behind a tree. So, chakra, the discus with luster of the sun, two of, I mean, the chakra and the conch are attributes of Vishnu. There is no doubt about it. And then here you have something, a broken, which I see the spherical head of the danda or the mace posed on the ground has survived. So if you look carefully, this statue of Vishnu in Allahabad Museum and also Vishnu in Udayagiri caves. So it should be a danda, as you can see here, chakra and the danda. So if you compare this one, and also these are the earliest depictions of sculptures of Vishnu in Indian art. And also, if you look very carefully to see the Greek inspiration on them, Vishnu is wearing a crown, which is a mural crown, like resembles the headpiece representing city walls or towers or corona muralis worn by the Taiki, the city goddess, mainly during the Hellenistic period. And then the same thing could be seen here. This is a Gandharan sculptures on our left top hand side, above where you have the city goddess with a similar crown and also city towers over the left shoulder. So he's wearing mural crown like the city goddess. And then Vishnu wears a long garland, what we call a vanamala, reaching below his knees, as seen on many Kashmiri sculptures of the 9th century. The Gandharan sculpture is much early. So again, the vanamala, this is the earliest vanamala that we know of Vishnu in Indian art. And then the tree in front of the god deserves our attention. The species of the tree in question on the coins and the sculpture cannot be identified with certainty due to the absence of leaves. If it is a peepal tree or Ficus religiosa in Latin or Ashwatha in Sanskrit, there is a reference in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, I am Ashwatha, Lord of trees. And in the same, the Skanda Purana, where the greatness of Ashwatha tree is described, it is said, when asleep, the powerful Lord Vishnu resorts to the middle of the tree and appears to drink the entire quantity of water present on the earth. It further says, the water is Vishnu himself. In the form of water, Vishnu himself is the great rasa, the bliss or juice. For this reason, Vishnu presents Chaturamasya, holy period of 4 months, is destructive of sins. This is in Skanda Purana. We are thus tempted to believe that the child emerging from the middle of the tree is Vishnu himself in the form of Krishna. And then the female figure emerging from the ground, supporting the weight of Vishnu in her palms and looking at God in adoration, is Earth Goddess or the Devi or the consort of Varaha. So it is a combination of all these texts that you see in a codified context. So for example, if you have a look at this one from Jammu Kashmir of a later period, now in the Los Angeles County Museum, where you can see Vishnu vanquishing the Titans, and then you can see the emerging from the earth, the Prithvi. And also this one in the Asia Society in New York, the same type with all the characteristics that evoked. And also it's interesting, the Hellenistic inspiration on Gandharan art, the earth goddess or the Prithvi or the Bhudevi emerges from the leaves. These leaves looks like acanthus leaves. As you all know, the Corinthian capitals were imitating the acanthus leaves. So this context, and also I'm taking you to another sculpture which I already showed you, the descent of the Buddha from Samkasya from the heaven of Indra, where you can see Uttaravarna. And here at the bottom, the Gandhara relief depicting the descent of the Buddha at Samkasya, where you can see again the Prithvi or the earth goddess venerating the Buddha in Anjali Mudra, and you can see the acanthus leaves behind. So you can see the combination of Gandhara art with the Indian, following to a certain extent Indian sacred text, and also getting inspirations from Hellenistic or, but I mean, I didn't go into other forms of art which may have inspired Gandhara art, is a wonderful combination. And these are the earliest depictions of Brahma, Indra, Vishnu, and Shiva. So the emergence of Hindu imagery in North India can now be dated to the 3rd century BC, and we cannot no longer pass over in silence the importance of numismatic evidence. In Gandhara, there was a transitional period characterized by composite images and innovative attempts seen on coin types and plastic art. These efforts are the results of a multitude of interactions taking place in a region where civilizations from diverse horizons merged at the crossroads of Central Asia and Northwest India. These unusual images gave way to the more strictly regulated and codified iconography of later Indian art. So with this, I may stop because I have taken almost 1 hour and 10 minutes. I don't think I'll be able to talk about Surya image today, which I wrote a book on this, and this will appear in 3 or 4 months' time. But if Aditya and his friends won't wish that I would talk about it, I can talk about Surya some other day. So thanking you, all of you, for listening to me, and I'll be very happy to answer your questions. So I will close down the PowerPoint now and leave in the asking Aditya and his friends to take over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for this enriching presentation and your talk. We would now like to move on to the question answer session. If anybody has any question, please feel free to ask. Any questions?
It might take a little bit of time.
Sure. Okay, yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah.
So until then, I have a personal question to you. I just want to ask, since any Gandharan art or sculpture does represent any kind of crown, like the wreath crown the Romans or the Greeks used to wear, does any Gandharan art represent such sculpture?
You mean a crown?
Wearing the crowns the Greeks used to wear. Like olive crowns.
The one that I showed is a Corona Muralis. It's a crown that normally worn by the city goddess. It's very common in Gandhara art.
Yes.
But other Greek types of crowns, apart from the coins, you don't find them on Gandharan sculptures. But you get instead of the crowns, but most of the clothes that they are wearing, they are more like Roman clothes, Himatian and other things. So the clothes are more Greek; they are not at all Indian. And also some of the, I gave this talk about 3 months back in Hong Kong University, where all the Greek elements in Gandharan art, like clothes, jewelry, and also the motifs and other things. But the crown himself does not appear for a simple reason, unless it is a Jataka story, because Buddha, you might expect Siddhartha as Bodhisattva to wear a crown, but he is not shown with a crown. Buddha is shown with a crown much later period, especially in the Pala dynasty and also Jammu Kashmir and other places, but they are not Greek crowns. But Greek clothes, Greek jewelry, Greek motifs, Greek architecture, they are all present in Gandharan art, but to narrate an Indian.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Please brief.
Yes, we have one question. Yeah. Sir, shall I repeat it for you, or can you take? Shall I repeat?
Yeah, can you please briefly describe about Kapila?
Yes, sure, sir.
This, of course, I answered in detail in my recent book. So it's another phase of Vishnu as a it's almost like Bhairava compared to Shiva, but Kapila has also come as some sort of a destructive element of Vishnu. So I would invite you to read, and if you give me your name and email address to you, and also to Aditya, I will send you the pages that I talk about Kapila, which I discuss in detail
Of
about
course.
from the text. Yeah, from the text. It might take a lot of time to answer. Yeah. Yeah, antelope in the Shiva iconography. Antelope is the black deer, or the black antelope, as Shiva as the Pashupati. There are many meaning to the antelope. So it later, of course, the antelope skin, which is called later became Krishna Jina or the Jina or the antelope skin. Either Shiva is shown wearing the antelope skin, or the antelope skin over the shoulder, normally on the right shoulder. The one that I showed you from Aihole, which is in the Bombay Museum now. So that's a Brahma, and also the Shiva also has the same antelope, and also on the coins of Kanishka and Hovishka, uh, Shiva in the name of Oyesho holds, especially on the coins of Huishka, holds a full antelope from the cones. So antelope is always associated with Shiva, which is a black deer, so you cannot separate Shiva from the antelope as the Pashupati. And also, it also appears, I have to confess, also on Brahma, but on the early images, and later around the 8th century on the sculptures of Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva. As Professor Jaini argued, what happens in the 8th century, Avalokiteshvara takes the forms of Shiva, because he has got the Jina, the Krishna Jina, the antelope skin or antelope head, and also he has got some of the attributes like Pasha and other attributes of Shiva. But he is Avalokiteshvara because he has the Amitabha on the headdress. So that is one of the reasons, as Professor Jaini argued, one of the reasons for the disappearance of Mahayana Buddhism in India, because the Avalokiteshvara image was more close to Shiva image than of an Bodhisattva image. So antelope cannot be dissociated with Shiva at the beginning, and cannot be dissociated with Avalokiteshvara and Brahma first, and then later with Avalokiteshvara. It's quite important element. Yeah. In one of the images you identified, Apasmara could be that of Ayudha Purusha. No, Apasmara Purusha I did not identify as an Ayudha Purusha, because Apasmara Purusha is one of the, like tiger and lion and the other, that the rishis threw against Shiva. So Shiva killed the lion and the tiger and others, but kept the Apasmara Purusha. Apasmara Purusha is the symbol of ignorance. So Apasmara Purusha was never used as Ayudha Purusha, because he didn't have the vocation to have arms. Normally, in later, not that later, but also in Chola period, and also in Badami and also Maharashtra and other places from the 6th, 7th century onwards, most of the Nataraja images have Apasmara Purusha under 1 foot of Shiva, because he's dancing. But he didn't kill Apasmara Purusha, but because he tramples Apasmara Purusha, because he represents the ignorance. So I don't think he's represented as Ayudha Purusha, but there are two Ayudha Purushas. One is the Chakra Purusha that appear on Harihara sculpture, and also Kundiga Purusha, which is quite uncommon in codified Indian art that you find in the Shiva sculpture from Banu area. So is Gandhara representation of these gods also the earliest representation of these gods? Yeah, this is my argument. People might get angry with me, but I have to tell the truth, the earliest representations of Hindu gods um, uh, appeared on the coins first, as Wilfred Pieper argued. So that's the Mauryan series. As you know, the Mauryan series, I mean, these coins were in circulation in Gangetic Valley and Indus Valley and also up to Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. That's one thing. But when you look at the earliest sculptures that I showed you, especially of Vishnu, Shiva, Indra, Brahma, these are the earliest sculptures we know of India. When I say India here in this context, I'm referring to India in the ancient context. I mean, before the, of course, creation of Pakistan. So these images emerged from the Indus Valley. I'm from the Indus Valley, say in Gandhara. I am not entering into the discussion with the appearance of Shiva in the Indus Valley civilization, which I don't accept, and I'm not the only person. But if you take the gap between the Indus civilization and the second urbanization, the earliest depictions of Hindu gods mainly appeared in a Gandharan context, especially the zoomorphic and the anthropomorphic images of Varaha, and also Balarama Samkarshana and Balarama Samkarshana and Vasudeva Krishna, those images, most of them appeared in a Gandharan context. And they were, of course, later taken up, as I showed you, in Maharashtra, in Pala art, and also later in Pallava art, all over India, and also especially Kartikeya. Kartikeya first appeared in Gandhara, wearing cataphractus, the heavy armor, and later, if you look at the contemporary Kartikeya images in Mathura and other parts of India, he doesn't wear a cataphractus. So I believe the first images, first sculptures of Hindu gods appeared in a Gandharan context. Thank you so much for your interesting lecture. I would like to know about the iconography of Nana. Do you think that she is in the precursors of Mahisha Asuramardani? This hypothesis is, of course, presented. I mean, this is another subject I would like to talk some other time, which I am working on. The assimilation of these gods, also of Lakshmi and also Maheshi, and also of the earliest images. And also we have to take into consideration the Ardoksho, which is also common on the coins. There is of course what you call a line in the middle connecting all these goddesses into one, and they evolve in different chronological and geographical contexts. So in that sense, of course, I would say there is a connection which needed to be. Of course, people have done a lot of work on this, but it's when it comes to Maheshi or Durga killing the bull, it comes in a very codified context, and you don't see that at the early period. But this veneration of the early forms of goddesses like Lakshmi into other forms of Indian gods and Indian goddesses is quite acceptable. But this is a very, very complicated subject. Perhaps some other time I would like to talk about it with pictures, with images. It's very important, and also with the text, if possible. Thank you.
Okay, so we would have one last question now.
Yeah.
Yes.
My question is, Gandharan art is a style of Buddhist visual art that developed in northwest Pakistan and eastern Afghanistan between first century BC and 7th century CE. What were main features that assert the influence of Buddhist culture on Gandharan art form? I'm trying to understand. First of all, the Gandharan art didn't appear in the 1st century BC. It appeared only somewhere during the time in anthropomorphic images Buddha appeared after Kanishka, so it has to be after 127. That means second century. You can go up to 7th century, but it's a different form of Kashmiri art. But it comes to an end somewhere around the 5th century. What you find in Gandhara is a Buddhist story. It is not a Greek story. It is not a Roman story. It's not a Persian story. It is the story of of Buddha, Sakyamuni, or Gautama Buddha, what we call historical Buddha, whose life is written in sacred texts known to us today as Lalita Vistara, and also Mahavastu, Buddha Charita, Mulisravasti Vinay, and then we have the Pali texts in Sri Lanka like Nidhana Katha and others. So those texts cannot be dated before the 2nd century. It does not mean that there were no texts before. For example, if you look at the stories depicted in Sanchi and Bharut, especially Jataka stories on the North Torana of Sanchi Stupa number 1, the Great Stupa, which follows to the letter the depiction, the narration in Jatakamala of Vesantara Jataka, and also the same thing, the conception of Siddhartha, elephant entering into dreaming the elephant entering the womb. These are all, those stories are found in later texts, but these texts did not exist in written form during the period that first forms of Buddhist art appeared in Bharut and Sanchi. It means to say that there were texts which are lost or which we will find later. I'll give you one example. The wonderful work done by Richard Solomon, Timothy Lenz, and many other students of Richard Solomon, like Stefan Baum, Mark Allen, and others. They are looking at the Gandhari manuscripts found in Gilgit and also Bamiyan and many other places in Afghanistan and Pakistan. They completely revolutionize our knowledge of Indian text and also about the Mahayana, right? So most of these texts are dated to the 1st century. That means earlier than Mahavastu, Lalita Vistara, Buddha Charita, and Mulisravasvadi Vinaya. So it means to say that there were texts circulating even during the period of Bharut, meaning 2nd century BC, and they were written down somewhere around the 2nd century CE. And Gandharan artists, which I always argued in my books, although the Gandharan artists follow to a certain extent what is written in Lalita Vistara, but sometimes you have the impression that there was a text earlier than Lalita Vistara, which inspired Lalita Vistara itself, and also which inspired Gandharan art. So many things have to be taken into consideration. So we have what I repeat again, not to leave any misunderstanding about it. Gandharan art, as a technical point of view, they were inspired by the Greek art, Roman art, Persian art, Indian art, and also to a certain extent Chinese art. But they depict a story which is Indian. That is the story of Gautama Buddha. And those texts, those stories are to be found in Gandharan texts. So to narrate this Indian story in different schools of art, they use different methods. What you find in Gandhara, you don't find in Mathura, and what you find in Mathura is not found in Andhra Pradesh. And also recently found Kanigiri. I'm sure you invited Professor Parudar. She must have given a wonderful talk about the study she has done. So that's the important element that we need to take into consideration. There were a lot of texts, and there were a lot of schools, and there were a lot of inspiration. But at the end of the story is Indian, whatever the inspiration there were. Thank you very much.
So it was really an enriching, exhilarating, and exotic experience to have a talk with you, sir. We are really happy to have you today, and I would like to thank you for joining us, enriching with your scholarly skills and knowledge. And before moving on, I would like to inform to everybody that we have our upcoming event on 5th June. That is 3 days from now, 3 days after from now. And the first event that we have on that day is about scientific temper need of the hour, which would be spoken by Professor Deepak Kumar. And the second slot we have is Love, Betrayal, and Prostitution in Colonial Bengal by Dr. Aparna Bandyopadhyay. I would really like to thank again once, sir, to have us with here. We are really happy. We would like to extend our thanks from our behalf of the entire team. And good night. And once again, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Okay. Bye bye. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, sir. Good.